Our story begins not on the crowded streets of New York, but under the oppressive fertile shadow of Mount Vesuvius in a small town near Naples. In 1897, Vito Genovese is born into an Italy of grinding poverty and ancient codes. The air here smells of citrus and volcanic ash, and the lessons are simple. Strength is respected, cunning is admired, and family is the only institution that cannot fail you. When Vito arrives in New York City as a boy in 1913, he doesn't see the Statue of Liberty as a beacon of hope. He sees the teeming, violent tenements of Lower Manhattan as a new kind of wilderness, one ripe for conquest. He is not an immigrant dreaming of assimilation. He is a transplant, bringing the ruthless sapling of his upbringing to a new soil he intends to dominate. From the very beginning, Vito is different. He lacks the charm of a lucky Luciano or the political cunning of a Costello. What he possesses is a chilling, unblinking ambition, paired with a belief that fear is a more reliable currency than loyalty. As a young man, he falls in with the rising star of the streets, Charlie Lucky Luciano. Genovese becomes Luciano's shadow, not his friend, but his instrument. Where Luciano thinks strategically, Genovese acts decisively. He is the man for the messy work, the silent partner in a dozen dark deals. He builds his reputation not on personality, but on results. While others talk, Vito watches. While others boast, Vito prepares. He is a student of power, learning its every dialect, and his early education is written in the blood of rival bootleggers and uncooperative associates during Prohibition. He understands that in this new world, the old Sicilian traditions of honor are an impediment. The future belongs to the corporation, and Vito intends to be on its board of directors. The Castellammarese War of 1930-31 is the crucible. The old mustache Petes, the traditional bosses like Salvatore Maranzano and Joe Masseria, are swept away in a storm of bullets orchestrated by the Young Turks, Luciano, Meyer Lansky, Benjamin Bugsy Siegel. When the smoke clears, the modern American Mafia is born, structured like a corporation with a national commission. Luciano is the undisputed king, the capo di tutti capi in all but name, and Vito Genovese, his faithful sottocapo, his underboss, is now one of the most powerful men in the country. But Vito is not content to live in another man's shadow, no matter how large. He builds his own empire within the Genovese family, then the Luciano family, with meticulous, cold-blooded precision. He becomes a master of the rackets that feed on the very fabric of New York, the garment center unions, the waterfront, the Harlem numbers games. He invests the profits into legitimate fronts, restaurants, funeral homes, real estate, creating a labyrinthine financial structure. His power is absolute, enforced by a terrifying reputation. He's a man of few words, but his gaze is a promise of violence. Anecdotes about him circulate like cold drafts. An associate who questions him is found dead the next day, a garrote wire left neatly on the corpse as a signature. He believes in the Sicilian Vespers, the idea that a single devastating coordinated strike can eliminate all your problems. He files this idea away, a weapon for the right moment. He marries a woman, Anna, and plays the family man in a lavish New Jersey home, but the domesticity is a thin veneer. The real Vito is in the back rooms of social clubs, his presence lowering the temperature in the room, his silence more intimidating than any threat. In 1934, Vito's ruthless ambition almost catches up with him. He is implicated in the murder of a low-level hoodlum, Ferdinand the Shadow Boccia. Facing trial, he makes a calculation. His power cannot protect him from a witness's testimony. In 1937, he flees to Italy, a king in exile. But Vito Genovese does not go into hiding, he goes to court. Fascist Italy, under Mussolini, is ironically the perfect place for him. He ingratiates himself with the regime, even allegedly becoming a financial benefactor to Mussolini's son-in-law, Count Galeazzo Ciano. He thrives in the atmosphere of totalitarian corruption, building a new black market empire during World War II. Some whispers even suggest darker collaborations that his network supplied the regime. For Vito, ideology is irrelevant. Power is the only principle. Meanwhile, back in New York, the throne sits empty. His rival, the more diplomatic, politically connected Frank Costello, assumes leadership. Costello, the prime minister of the underworld, rules with phone calls and favors, not garrots. The family prospers, but to Vito, watching from afar, it becomes soft, compromised. His return in 1945 is not that of a prodigal son, but of a conquering general. He is arrested on the old Boccia murder charge, but in a display of his terrifying influence, the key witness is poisoned in a prison cell with cyanide-laced coffee before he can testify. The case evaporates. Vito is free. Now begins his cold, patient campaign for total control. He cannot simply kill Costello. Costello is too powerful, too well insulated. So Vito orchestrates a campaign of psychological terror. He lets the tension build, layer by layer. He undermines Costello's authority within the family, questioning his methods, positioning himself as the strong, traditional alternative to Costello's political approach. The climax is a masterpiece of old-school mafia tension. In 1957, Costello survives an assassination attempt, a bullet grazing his scalp. He comes to a sudden, cold realization. The will to rule requires a willingness to descend into a war he no longer has the stomach for. He looks into the abyss of a conflict with Genovese and sees only endless bloodshed. He chooses life and retirement. Without a shot being fired from his own gun, Vito Genovese becomes the boss. He has finally stepped out of the shadow and into the light of absolute power he always craved. Having achieved his life's goal, Vito Genovese makes a fatal error. He believes his own myth. He thinks the fear he commands is the same as respect, that his ruthless logic is unassailable. In his quest to be the supreme ruler, he overreaches, attempting to call a historic Apalachin-style meeting of the Commission in 1957 to formally anoint himself as the boss of bosses. The meeting is raided by police, creating a national scandal that puts an unwelcome permanent spotlight on organized crime. The other bosses, humiliated and furious, blame Genovese. His next move is even more catastrophic. He becomes convinced two of his most powerful rivals, Frank Costello, now retired but still influential, and Albert Anastasia, the volatile boss of the Gambino family, are plotting against him. He greenlights the hit on Anastasia, who was famously gunned down in a barber's chair in 1957. But the plot backfires spectacularly. It brings Anastasia's underboss, a quiet, cunning man named Carlo Gambino, to power. And Gambino, alongside his ally, Meyer Lansky, decides Vito is a dangerous, unstable relic. They devise a trap worthy of Genovese himself. They use a mid-level soldier, a heroin addict named Nelson Cantelops, to set Vito up. They feed Genovese a story about a massive narcotics deal, playing perfectly to his greed and his belief in his own invincibility. In 1959, Vito Genovese, the man who avoided prison for decades, is convicted on federal narcotics charges. The sentence is 15 years. The other bosses, led by Gambino, breathe a sigh of relief. The ruthless architect has been condemned to a prison of his own design. Vito Genovese spends his final years in the United States Penitentiary in Atlanta, a king in a cage. Even from prison, he tries to rule, issuing orders, demanding tribute. But the world has moved on. His family is now run by a committee, men who visit him out of obligation, not fear. The empire he built so ruthlessly continues to operate, but it no longer bears his imprint. The cold, calculating machine now works for other, quieter masters. He dies in prison in 1969, not in a blaze of glory, but from a heart condition. There is no massive mob funeral. The era of the flamboyant, all-powerful dictator boss dies with him. His legacy is a paradox. He was perhaps the most feared man in the history of the American Mafia, a pure, unadulterated force of criminal ambition. He built a vast empire through terror and cunning. Yet, his greatest achievements, becoming boss, calling the Apalachin meeting, eliminating Anastasia, directly led to his downfall and the end of the model of rule he embodied. He proved that in the end, unchecked ruthlessness is its own poison. It isolates you. It makes you see rivals in every shadow until you are trapped in a prison of your own paranoia, long before the steel doors clang shut. Vito Genovese, didn't just build a crime empire. He meticulously constructed his own demise, brick by bloody brick. He remains the ghost in the machine of organized crime, a cautionary tale whispered about in social clubs, a reminder that the most terrifying appetite is the one that can never be satisfied, and that eventually the shadow you cast can swallow you whole.